Hey everyone, it's 10 Types back with another tier list, or maybe the same tier list. This is the Series 2 or Pool 2 tier list for Marvel Snap. So we got all the cards here at the bottom that are from Series 2. There's not a lot, there's only 20 or so. But obviously, here you can also see the Pool 1 or Series 1 tier list above, and obviously, there are a lot more cards. But pretty much my plan here is to add on to this tier list so you can in the end have a complete tier list. I might update it, stuff like that. But in this video, I'm just going to be going over these 20 or so cards from Pool 2 and how good they are, starting off with Agent 13 here. But overall, if you have any thoughts on this idea, comment down below how you want me to do tier lists like this. I'm obviously going to do Series 3, and pretty much I'm going to rank all the cards. So I'm just going to go with Series 2 here for now, though. And first of all, we got Agent 13. This is an interesting card, but not the best. She's a 1/2, so an okay stat line, and she gets a free card. But most of the time, that card's not super useful. Sometimes you can build decks around getting random cards, which is okay. Mostly she's just there for decks where you want a big hand size, Collector, and Devil Dinosaur. But to be honest, she's not that interesting or that powerful. Bucky Barnes here, he's amazing. Maybe bottom of A tier. No, that's still too good. Maybe like top of B. A very good part of the destroy package. So when he gets destroyed, he's I think a 2/6, which is just amazing. An amazing stat line. Obviously, a great target to get destroyed as well. Can be played into Death's Domain. It's a super versatile card. So overall, I'd say Bucky Barnes is definitely one of the best cards in the game for destroy. And so, if you're playing a destroy deck, Bucky Barnes makes your deck. And in Series 1, you're just a bit short. You only have Nova as like the card you want to destroy, but now you got Bucky Barnes, and it becomes much stronger. Even Carnage Nova Bucky Barnes becomes an insane package to throw into almost any deck. So, I'd highly recommend playing that. Cloak here, an okay movement card, also gives your opponent some versatility. A bit of a weird card. I'd say this also belongs in Pool 3, and I'm looking at Agent 13. I didn't really order her, but she'll go at like near the high end of the C tier. But Cloak is also C tier, but probably lower end, probably like the bottom of C, because it's an maybe even a it's a solid stat line. 2/4 is pretty good, but the movement isn't that good. I'd say the solid stat line though puts it up a little higher. Honestly, it's probably might be better than Multiple Man. So somewhere around here, still not a very good card, but if you're playing a move deck, Cloaks and Auto include really good and really solid in those. Obviously, gives your opponent some maneuverability as well, but it's an interesting card and can be good. Ebony Maw with probably the best stat line in the game, 1/7, but some horrible abilities. It can't be played after turn 3, meaning that in a lot of games you just can't play it, and it also means you can't play any more cards there. So it can be combined with some stuff to be a bit more useful, but to be honest, Ebony Maw is really hard to use, and its benefit is good, but it's not amazing. It's too like all in, so I'd say it probably is D tier. It's not like one of the worst cards in the game, but yeah, like middle of D. It's a bit underwhelming a lot of the time. Hobgoblin here, really interesting. 5 -8, but it gets sent over to your opponent's side on reveal. It's okay. It can be messed up by certain locations. Well, it can notably be messed up by Kamartage, as well as probably Wong as well, and Odin, because it'll just get sent back to your side. But overall, it's really strong, can disrupt your opponent. I'd probably put it in bottom of B tier. It's not the strongest card, but in certain locations, notably anything that decreases power, it's just amazing because essentially it's increasing in power. It's hurting your opponent more, which is what you want. So I'd say it's B tier. You can put it in decks and disruption decks, but it can be blocked as well if your opponent fills the location up. It's one of those cards that's kind of risky to play. It can be very good, though, when it hits, right? We see Iceman here, one of the best disruption cards in the game. I'd say it's bottom of A. I might be being too generous on it. Nah, I think that's fair. I think good one drops are just amazing as well. We see the probably 4 the best here. There's one more really good one drop, but A good one drop can be put into any deck, and Iceman's one of them. Increases the cost of one of your opponent's cards randomly. And that is insane because if a lot of decks really want to play on a certain curve, notably what I think of as Wong decks, but if you hit Wong, if you hit Magic, these really important cards to decks, their game plan just completely falls apart and they can't do anything about it. Sorry, I'm still recovering. I think I'm a bit sick right now, but see, Iceman just like completely messes up your opponent sometimes. And it's only a one drop, so if it doesn't, it's okay. It'll pretty much always provide some benefit. Sometimes you can't hit any target, meaning that you'll learn that your opponent has like a really expensive hand. Stuff like that. Overall, though, it's one of the best and most versatile cards. You can put it in like any deck. I can't think of any time you wouldn't want this. If you're playing Khazar Zoo, it's an auto include if you have it. So it's just one of the best one drops in the game. If not the best, I'd say it's below Nightcrawler. And we got another really good one drop, but overall it's really good. We see Infinite. This card's kind of weird. It probably belongs in B tier though. 620, another amazing stat line, but then you can't have played any cards on your previous turn. So if you look at the math, even if you combine it with Sunspot, which we'll talk about later, it's not great value if you have to pass in turn 5. However, you can get some solid value if you're able to cheat it out. We got Jubilee coming up. We have what's the other deck? Hela and Lockjaw both play it. If you're able to get it out with those types of decks, that's really good, but those are kind of inconsistent. But I'd say it's good enough to be like bottom of B tier. I think somewhere like that makes a lot of sense. It's very strong when it hits, but it's really inconsistent in those types of decks, or sometimes you have to make big sacrifices. Your opponent also usually sees it coming a long ways away. They can't always do a lot about it, but it's also counterable with Shang-Chi and stuff like that. So it's a good card, but it only sees play in certain decks, and it's kind of inconsistent. We see Jubilee. This is another inconsistent. Well, it's weird. So 4/1, but then you pull a random card out of your deck into play. You can use this to ramp out stuff like Infinite, and I think it honestly is a very solid play, especially with the new with the new season pass, which I guess I'll talk about. The new card Zabu, it's very good. So I'd say probably middle of B, and let's see, probably somewhere like here. It's a very solid card. It increases the consistency if you haven't hit cards like if you're playing like a Zabu deck, or if you're playing a Sarah deck or a Mr. Negative and you haven't hit it and it's still in your deck, you can play Jubilee and have a chance of getting it. So that's really nice. Overall, I'd say it's just a very solid card. It's inconsistent. I wouldn't really recommend using it to cheat out stuff. I guess you could play it in Lockjaw decks, like Lockjaw Cycle. It's an interesting card. It's not the most consistent, but I'd say it gets solid value in some decks. Killmonger. This card's hard to rank. If you get it and you're into like Series 2, an early Series 2, it's amazing. It just completely obliterates Khazar Zoo. So I think for that reason, it also counters Sunspot, which is nice, but Electra also counters Sunspot, so I don't know if it's that good. But let's say it's probably in... I'm tempted. It's either B or A. I think I'll put an A. I'll put it on bottom of A. I think a lot of people think this card's amazing. It is quite strong, but it's not the best of the best. It's very good countering one drops. If your opponent's relying on a Nightcrawler or a Sunspot, which sometimes they are, it's super crucial. Also, no, I'll put it a little bit higher. Actually, quite a bit higher, in between Khazar and Moon Girl here. It really gets some amazing value when combined with Nova, Deadpool, Squirrel Girl to just destroy lots of cards, decreasing the cost of death. It can be really strong to just clear a board space as well. Obviously, usually both on yours and your opponent's side at that point. But it's a surprisingly versatile card. It's both a counter card, a destroy card for yourself, and it just sees tons of play. It's something that everyone knows about, though, at this point. Usually, if you don't know about it and you're playing important one-drops, make sure you put armor in your deck. But most people do that, so it gets countered hard, but overall it's a very strong card. We see Leech, another counter card. It's okay, but honestly, if your opponent kind of knows it's coming, it's very easy to play against most of the time because they can just play their cards before you leech them, because if they play them by turn 5, they're fine. So I'd say Leech is like B tier, maybe Now, I say it's been seeing a lot of play recently. And people don't like it, but I don't think it's that good of a card. Sure, it can be really annoying, but I'm going to put it in C tier, I think. It's like maybe top of C tier. It's the best C tier card, but it's not quite B tier. It's kind of good, but its stat line's pretty bad. So honestly, a lot of decks can just run through it, and you don't really beat them. It can see a combination with leader, but honestly, that deck's a bit inconsistent. So I don't think it's that good. At least Leech is a solid card, but nothing amazing. We see Morbius here, and everyone's favorite card. It's kind of weird being in Marvel Snap, but it's funny. Is it that good? Discard's a solid deck, but it's not the best part to discard. It can become really big and gets more power every time you discard a card, but I'd say it's honestly just it's maybe upper C tier, somewhere around like here. It gets solid value sometimes, and it often exceeds that expected power output of the 2/3, but not always. I'd say Morbius is a mediocre card. If you play it on curve, it gets pretty big, but overall, it's not the strongest card. So I'd say C tier's solid, maybe B, but I'll put in C. Nakia, who's been through the blender with nerfs and buffs. She used to be absurdly overpowered, and then she got nerfed, and then she got like buffed, and it's been all over the place. I think she's getting buffed again in the new patch. I don't really know. I kind of forget, but she's bad right now, so we might touch on her again if she gets changed, but she just buffs 2 of your cards to power, but she's not like consistent enough really to be worth it, I don't think. So I'll put her in D tier, maybe upper D, maybe even yeah. She goes upper D tier here. She can be good, but usually she's not. Ikoria, on the other hand, much better stat line, buffs more cards, and you're gonna draw into those cards. So she usually provides much more of a benefit than Nakia. Doesn't buff as much, but she's a solid C tier card, good value. I'll put her in like around Morbius. Very similar, just gets good value and is pretty versatile. You can put in almost any deck, and she's usually fine. Nothing amazing, nothing horrible. You see Rhino here. Rhino's an okay card, but generally outclassed by Flood, who we'll be looking at, Storm, who I always call Flood because she floods the board. But Rhino gets outclassed by Storm and Scarlet Witch a lot of the time, so really you're not going to play this card. Scarlet Witch can be a bit more risky, but I think Rhino's almost always outclassed by Scarlet Witch, so probably ends up in F tier, honestly. One of the weakest cards in Series 3, or Series 2, not one you're looking to pull. Not that far down. Maybe like somewhere around here. He's not a card you want to really put in any deck, but if you really are looking, if you're like worried about Scarlet Witch, I guess you can put Rhino in, but being 3 cost just usually isn't worth it. There's a Sabretooth, a destroy card. If it gets destroyed, it comes back to your hand for free. It's okay in Venom decks, I guess, and Carnage, like destroying stuff. But it's not necessarily a particularly good card. It only has positive synergy with I said, Carnage and Venom. But overall, it's a pretty underwhelming card. Maybe D tier. I guess C tier. Like, I'm looking at the other cards here. Now I'm looking at Apocalypse. It really got done dirty here. Apocalypse should be a bit higher. Probably like, I'll put it bottom of, Apocalypse is like a really good card. Now that I think about it, Apocalypse I'll move up to like here or so. But yeah, Sabretooth is an okay card. Not one you necessarily choose to put in a destroy deck, but I saw as a consideration. Can be good, and kind of can store value for a big turn 6 push, although you're not actually getting any more value over the course of the game. Sandman, a 4/1, stopping players to only play 1 card per turn. Is this good? Not really. I don't think you'd like want to play this card. Sure, you could play it, I guess, but it's not that good. So probably going to be putting that in F tier. He's okay as a counter to Zabu, I guess, but he's not that good. And then we also see it's probably in F tier. One of the better F tier cards, but probably below Misty Knight, maybe below. I'll put it between Domino and Star-Lord here. If you play this, you can play it as a counter to Zabu in particular, maybe Mr. Negative and Sarah, but really it's an underwhelming card. They're like, it's just not that good. Its stat line's horrible, and it also limits your options, so it's not that good. Scorpion, another very versatile card, probably B tier. Kind of like Iceman, I'd say, but just a bit less impactful. Probably somewhere in like the middle of B. Let's put it above Jubilee. It decreases the power of your opponent's cards. Sometimes this is really impactful. Sometimes this is just okay, but it's always gonna net you some power generally. Usually overcoming that power, the 2-3 threshold that you're looking for. So Scorpion's a solid card. Is it a card you stick in a lot of decks? It sees a surprising amount of play, and it's solid. Shang-Chi, easy A tier card, I think. It's just so strong. It can just completely mess up massive counters. I'd say it's probably above America Chavez. Maybe I'm over ranking this, but I think it's so insanely powerful. There are so many decks that just get massive, and this just completely obliterates them. Oftentimes they're against a Black Panther or what's something else? A Destroyer that gets really big. Devil Dinosaur. It's just so impactful. Forces your opponent to armor that location up. I'll drop this down a little. Same thing as Killmonger. Probably a little worse than Killmonger. A bit less versatile, but still really good. If you're playing Zabu, 100% play this card. Overall, Shang-Chi is just amazing. I don't know, like, I don't know if this card's balanced or not. Might warrant a nerf, but it's just so strong, completely wrecking your opponent's board. Only like one location, but oftentimes you just when Shang-Chi might win that location outright if they're playing like a Destroyer or something. It won't necessarily outright win it, but it just provides so much benefit. So it's so hard to deal with. Storm, another really interesting card, kind of like Professor X, I guess, by like locking off a location. She becomes really good if you're playing an archetype where you want to just stop your opponent from playing cards, which isn't necessarily the best archetype for getting cubes, but it's a solid deck. Like the Spider-Man Control. Storm's very solid, and she sees play in lots of other decks as well. So I'd say she's probably B tier, maybe below, somewhere in like the middle of B here. So she gets solid value, but she's not amazing because she can like lock you. You can just lose a lane, but you kind of know what's happening. You can also push more power into there with stuff like Nightcrawler, Doctor Doom, anything that just puts more cards there can always be great. And it can be very problematic for most opponents to deal with as well because their decks usually aren't equipped for it. Sunspot, I'm not sure where I want to put this. It's a very heavily debated card, but it's either A or S tier, right? It's so good. It's a 1/1, but every time you don't spend energy, you get an extra power. Usually this ends up somewhere like 4 or 5, but really it's so important if you're playing Infinite, if you plan on actually laying the Infinite down by passing. If you're playing She-Hulk, Infinite's crucial, and it just makes its way into so many other decks. Killmonger is the biggest thorn in the side of this card, but I think this is an S tier card. I'll drop it. I'll say top of A. It's so good. If you're playing a deck and you're finding it to be a bit inconsistent, just throw Sunspot and bam, all of a sudden it's just really good. So I think easy A tier, smooths out your game a lot. One of the best one-drops, maybe the best. I personally like Nightcrawler more than this. Nightcrawler's a bit more versatile, I guess, but Sunspot's just so strong. Sunspot's probably the best Pool 2 card. Yeah, I'm looking. It's definitely the best Pool 2 card. It's so good. If you're wondering what's the best card that you just want to start putting in decks from Series 2, just like throw in Sunspot and everything. It's so good. Swarm here, a solid discard option. Sees play. It's a bit weird, but can allow for big turn 6 plays or turn 5 or whatever. So maybe B tier as well. It's a very balanced, solid card. It's not like amazingly strong though. probably somewhere like here. Also, Lizard, gonna drop that down to top of C. It's not that good. It sees a lot of play in my opinion, but it's not that strong. The Collector, another really interesting card, can get really big. I don't think its potential is fully realized yet, to be honest, but I'd say bottom of B. It can get really big. I covered it in a Beast Bounce deck overview, and it can get really big in combination with a lot of other things, including Swarm you could do. There are just so many interesting ways of increasing this card. It just gets more power every time you gain cards to your hand. Great combination with Devil Dinosaur. I'd say it's an easy beat here. It's not amazing, though. It can definitely fall flat, so that's why it's only B. Vision, a bit of a weird card. I don't know how to feel about this. You can move it. It says every turn, but really it's just like Nightcrawler, except a 5/7. It's not as good as Nightcrawler, certainly, but it provides some benefit, and it can get really a really solid chunk of power into a lane that's locked down by Death's Domain. It's stormed, or you just Sanctum Sanctorum, you can't play cards there, stuff like that. So I think it's pretty solid. Probably C, though. I don't think it's that good in too many decks, and it's not consistently strong. So it gets outclassed. So top of C. Vulture here, one of the best movement cards in my opinion. Vulture and the Human Torch kind of make the movement package, in my opinion. You also have Multiple Man, but that just clogs up your board and doesn't necessarily get a lot of power out. Vulture, on the other hand, does get really big. Almost always going to get to a 3, 5 power? I don't remember. But it gets really big. So 100% Vulture is one of the best move cards, if not the best, in my opinion. So I'll say it's only middle of B. Maybe upper B. Yeah, I'll say it's near the top of B, but it's by far the best move card, or at least very close to the best move card, and it's only B, so that kind of shows how the move decks aren't quite as good as they'd like to be. Please, Marvel Snap, buff this deck. It's really fun, but it's not very good, except for Nightcrawler, which is absurdly good, and maybe nerf that card. But overall, Vulture's a solid card, and one of the crucial move pieces. Once you've got Vulture, you're pretty much set to play move. There are a few cards later on, but they're not that good. So I'd say Vulture, super good. Now Warpath, another really good card. I'm tempted to say A. I'll say it's 8. No, it's not 8 here. It's a bit below. It's like somewhere around here. Top of B, I moved the wrong card. Very top of B here. Just amazingly powerful because it gets to a 5/9 if you have an empty location, and obviously you want an empty location. Sometimes it gets messed up by a few locations, but to be honest, it's not too bad. And then you power this up, and then you have Destroyer in one lane. It's the Spectroyer list that I don't think I covered. I might cover it. It was a bit overplayed, but it's still very strong. With Spectrum, Warpath, you just get this one really big lane with Warpath, and then another really big lane with some other stuff, and all of a sudden, bam, you've gotten a ton of power in 2 lanes. Warpath is amazing value for 4 cost, and it just is so consistent. I think Warpath is very good if you just want to build a deck around a very, tall deck where you just focus on a few lanes. Warpath, maybe Onslaught as well could be good. Some interesting options, but overall, yeah, this is Series 3. Or sorry, this is not Series 3. This is Series 2. I'll be covering Series 3 next time or in a future video. Comment how you want to see me cover that. This tier list is getting very big. I'll zoom out so you can kind of see everything going on here. But overall, it's really interesting with the Series 2. There aren't too many cards, but they're really important, impactful, and they kind of round out the collection. And then you go into the late game where you have all these very weird but really fun cards in Series 3. But overall, I hope you enjoyed. I wonder if you agree with these. Comment down below if you agree or if you don't agree. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.